In this session, we'll be covering Chapter 9, Management Control Systems and Responsibility Accounting. When we finished with this section, we should be able to describe the relationship of management control systems to organizational goals, to explain the importance of evaluating performance and describe how it impacts motivation, goal congruence, and employee effort, to develop performance measures and use them to monitor the achievements of an organization, and to be able to use responsibility accounting in order to define an organizational subunit as a cost center, a profit center, or an investment center. We will also prepare segment income statements for evaluating profit and investment centers using the contribution margin and controllable cost concepts. We will understand how to measure performance against non-financial performance measures such as quality, cycle time, and productivity. We'll discuss the Balanced Scorecard and how we integrate financial and non-financial measures of performance using that tool, and we'll describe the difficulties of management control in service and nonprofit organizations. A management control system is a logical integration of techniques for gathering and using information to make planning and control decisions, for motivating employee behavior, and for evaluating performance. A well-designed management control system supports and coordinates the decision-making process and motivates individuals throughout the organization to act in concert. It also facilitates forecasting and budgeting, which we talked about during our last session. And so here we see that planning includes defining goals and establishing and carrying out plans to achieve goals. Control includes actions such as measuring and reporting results and performance evaluations. And equally important, we see this central focus on feedback and learning, since feedback acts as a way of the system providing input in order to correct itself. So we get feedback so that we can reevaluate our processes, our procedures, our staff performance, and expectations of them. And of course, we want to always position ourselves to be a learning organization so that we're able to evolve and adapt to the market and to external demands as much as possible. Key success factors are characteristics or attributes that managers must achieve in order to drive the organization toward its goals. Managers set goals and objectives and develop related performance measures for the organization. Performance measures become more specific as we move to lower levels of the organization. Goals provide the long-term framework around which an organization will perform its comprehensive plan for positioning itself in the market. So top managers set organization-wide goals, performance measures, and targets, which they generally review annually. Increasingly, these are reviewed more frequent than annually, again because of the dynamic nature of the markets in which we operate. However, these goals provide a long-term framework around which an organization will form its comprehensive plan for positioning itself in the market. Top management and critical process managers develop key success factors and performance measures. They also identify specific objectives. Critical process managers and lower-level employees develop specific performance measures for each objective. An important goal of the management control system is to motivate employees to work in the best interest of the organization. A good management control system fosters both goal congruence and managerial effort. An organization achieves goal congruence when employees, working in their own perceived best interest, makes decisions that help meet the overall goals of the organization. Managerial effort, which is the exertion toward a goal or objective, must accompany goal congruence. Effort here includes not only working harder or faster, but also working better. It includes all conscious actions such as planning, supervising, and thinking that result in more efficiency and effectiveness. Managerial effort, or this exertion toward a goal or objective, must accompany goal congruence. Effort here includes not only working harder or faster, but also working better. Again, it includes all conscious actions such as supervising, planning, and thinking that result in more efficiency and effectiveness. Motivation, that is the drive towards some selected goal that creates effort and action toward the goal, is key to management control. And so effective performance measurement requires multiple performance measures, both financial and non-financial. Some examples of what these effective performance measurements will do are to reflect key actions and activities that relate to the organizational goals. These measures will be affected by actions of managers and employees. The measures should be readily understood by employees. They should be reasonably objective and easily measured. They should be used consistently and regularly to evaluate and reward, and they should balance long-term and short-term concerns. So sometimes accountants and managers focus too much on financial measures such as operating budgets, profit targets, and required return on investment because this is the information that the accounting system readily produces. Financial measures are often lagging indicators that arrive too late. Non-financial measures often motivate employees toward achieving important performance goals. So what we have to look for in evaluating performance are both measures of financial and non-financial performance. And we need to ensure that the goals we agree to with employees include both financial and non-financial. And to a certain extent, it's important that we recognize that there are goals that should be developed with the employee's best interest at heart, such as professional development. While this should benefit the firm, it should also be highly leveraged toward the employee so that they can see the organization is interested in investing in their skills and their qualifications, which should in turn increase productivity and help the organization achieve its goals better. And so as we discussed earlier, feedback and learning are at the center of the management control system. Organization-wide learning is a foundation for gaining and maintaining financial strength. And we used to have initiatives many years ago that were geared toward knowledge management. That became a buzzword back then, but it's kind of strayed away now, and it's more organizational learning and trying to instill in an organization the adaptability and flexibility so that an organization can respond both proactively and reactively to changes in its environment and to input into the organization system from the environment. So organizational learning leads to financial strength. Measures such as training time, employee turnover, and staff satisfaction scores on employee surveys monitor organizational learning. The result of learning is continuous process improvement. Measures such as cycle time, number of defects, or quality and activity costs can assess improvement. Customers will value improved response time, that is lower cycle time, higher quality, and lower prices, and will increase their demand for products and services. Increased demand combined with lower costs to make and deliver products and service results in improved product profitability and earnings. The designer of a management control system must always weigh the costs and benefits of various alternatives. Benefits and costs, controllable and uncontrollable, of management control systems are often difficult to measure, and both may become apparent only after experimentation or use. And so management control systems often distinguish between controllable and uncontrollable events and between controllable and uncontrollable costs. These terms refer to relative rather than absolute controllability. No cost is completely under the control of a manager, and a controllable cost is one that, as a manager's decisions, affect to a reasonable extent. A controllable cost is any cost that management an uncontrollable cost is any cost that management cannot reasonably affect within a given time span. On the other hand, a controllable cost includes those costs that a manager's decisions and actions can influence to a reasonable extent. And so it's important when we're establishing a performance evaluation plan that we recognize this distinction between controllable versus uncontrollable at the manager level, because it's unfair to hold a manager responsible for costs or events that they have no input or influence over. And so designers of a management control system identify the responsibilities of each manager in an organization by establishing responsibility centers based on what a manager can control. A responsibility center is a set of actions and resources assigned to a manager or group of managers or other employees. Responsibility centers usually have multiple goals and actions that the management control system monitors. We classify responsibility centers as cost centers, profit centers, or investment centers based on their manager's primary responsibilities. So we have three different types of responsibilities we're going to talk about: cost center, profit center, or investment center. And so in a cost center, managers are responsible for costs only. A cost center may encompass an entire department, or a department may contain several cost centers. For example, although one manager may supervise an assembly line or assembly department, the department may contain several assembly lines, and each assembly line may be considered a separate cost center. Likewise, within each line, each separate machine may be its own cost center. The determination of the number of cost centers depends on cost-benefit considerations. That is, do the benefits that we derive for planning, control, and evaluation of smaller, more numerous cost centers exceed the higher costs of reporting? And so with a cost center, what we see is that a manager is responsible for controlling cost. They're not responsible for profit. They're not responsible for the revenue side of the income statement. They're responsible for and are evaluated on how well they control cost. And they have a great deal of autonomy in the control of these costs generally. Profit center managers are responsible for controlling revenues as well as costs, which result in profitability. A profit center can exist in nonprofit organizations despite the name, although it might be referred to as something different. So what we see here is the difference between a profit center and a cost center is that managers who control profit centers not only make decisions regarding the amount of, the level of, and the controllability of costs, they're also making decisions regarding the generation of revenue. So that could include decisions such as product lines, mixes of product lines, new product offerings, changes to products, pricing of the products. And so you can see that there's a much more broader range of decision-making autonomy that are associated with profit centers. And so an investment center adds responsibility for investment to profit center responsibilities. Investment center success depends on both income and invested capital, measured by relating income generated to the value of the capital employed. And so essentially there what we're saying is that, well, managers of these investment centers are also responsible for the return on the capital that is invested in order to generate the revenue or to generate the level of cost involved. So these managers may be not only responsible, or will be not only responsible for revenue and cost, they may also face decisions like, well, should we invest in a capital project that upgrades the assembly line equipment so that manufacturing is more efficient, or so that improved quality is attached to our product, which could drive a premium, a more premium price. And then if we make that decision, what is the expected return as the result of that investment? And then how do I actually, or what are my actual results as a result stemming from having made that investment decision? So many organizations combine the contribution approach to measuring income with responsibility accounting. That is, they report by cost behavior as well as by degrees of controllability. Managers on all levels help explain the total segment contribution, but they are responsible only for the controllable contribution. Fixed costs controllable by the segment managers are deducted from the contribution margin to obtain the contribution controllable by segment managers. Controllable costs are usually discretionary fixed costs such as local advertising and some salaries, but not the manager's salary. In recent years, many organizations have developed a new awareness of the importance of controlling aspects of non-financial performance. For example, some sales organizations follow up on customers to ensure their satisfaction, and manufacturers track manufacturing defects and product performance. We first examine individual examples. Quality control is the effort to ensure that products and services perform to customer requirements. In essence, customers or clients define quality by comparing their needs to the attributes of the product or service. The traditional approach to controlling quality in the United States was to inspect products after completing them and reject or rework those that failed the inspection. Because testing is expensive, companies often inspected only a sample of products. The high cost of achieving quality by the traditional approach of inspecting it in are evident in a cost of quality report, which displays the financial impact of quality. The quality cost report measures 4 categories of quality cost: prevention, appraisal, internal failure, and external failure. We see that prevention costs are defined as the cost incurred to prevent the production of defective products or delivery of substandard services, with the expectation that if we can prevent getting defective products or prevent the failure of services prior to it happening, it will more than justify these prevention costs versus having them introduced and the failure detected later in the process. Appraisal costs are the costs incurred to identify defective products or services. And I think it's not a far stretch to say that, well, if we increase prevention costs and we are able to improve the downstream quality of the product or service, our appraisal costs would be reduced. Internal failure costs are the cost of defective components and final product or services that are scrapped or reworked. So once we've found a product that doesn't meet our quality standards, we have to pull it from the assembly line or we have to re-perform the service. And the cost of these actions are referred to as internal failure costs. These external failure costs, which are generally much more important to the organization, are the costs that are caused by delivery of defective products or services to customers. And so examples we see here are an item being delivered and then a salesperson, or I'm sorry, a repairman having to go out to a homeowner or to an organization to repair it. And so we have these external failure costs, but included therein are the issues which are hard to quantify, such as the customer's perception of the of our product or our service and what that may mean the next time they go to buy that. So there are some of these issues that are hard to quantify. Total quality management focuses on prevention of defects and on achievement of customer satisfaction. The total quality management or TQM approach builds on the assumption that an organization minimizes the cost of quality when it achieves high quality levels. TQM is the application of quality principles to all of the organization's endeavors to satisfy customers. We're able to track our quality control through the use of a quality control chart, which is a statistical plot of measures of various product dimensions or attributes. It helps us to detect process deviations before the process generates defects. And so we have an example of that in the next slide. And so what we see here is that on the left margin, we see the percentage of defects, and across the bottom, we see a timeline, and we see where we're actually tracking our actual percentage of defects by week, and we're applying that against a goal. And as we're able to track this, and unfortunately and generally, this is done in hindsight, but as we are able to track this, we see where we're meeting intolerable levels of defect, and we're able to adjust whatever might need to adjust to move us back toward the direction of the goal. And we might be able to use this quality control chart to be proactive if we plot this information based on historical actuals and are able to see that, well, perhaps during the summer our actual percentage of defects increases, and maybe we can relate that to the vacation that employees take, and can be proactive about how we manage that vacation or what extra efforts we take during that vacation period, knowing that historically we have a higher percentage of defects. So there's a lot of sort of different uses to these types of quality control tools. Six Sigma is a continuous process improvement effort designed to reduce costs by improving quality. It has broadened into a general process to define and measure a process, analyze it, and improve it to minimize errors. And so reducing cycle time is a key to improving quality. Cycle time, or throughput time, is defined as the time taken to complete a product or service. It is a summary measure of efficiency and effectiveness, and is also an important cost driver. The longer a product or service is in process, the more cost it consumes. More than half the companies in the United States measure and manage productivity as part of the effort to improve their competitiveness. Productivity is defined as a measure of outputs divided by inputs. The fewer inputs needed to produce a given output, the more productive the organization. Obviously, we're also concerned with level of quality. So, are we increasing productivity at the expense of quality? And if that's the case, we need to revisit that, because in the long term, that is not sustainable. Labor-intensive organizations, especially service organizations, focus on increasing the productivity of labor, so labor-based measures are appropriate. Highly automated companies focus on machine use and productivity of capital investments, so capacity-based measures, such as the percentage of time that machines are available, may be more important to them. Manufacturing companies, in general, monitor the efficient use of materials. In all cases, a measure of the resource that management wishes to control is in the denominator, which is the input, and a measure of the objective of using the resource is in the numerator. And so here we see certain possible measures based on whether the resource is labor, materials, or equipment, capital, or physical capacity. And we see what the possible output of these efforts are, and we see what the possible inputs of these efforts may be represented by, and then this calculation gives us a measure of productivity. And so the Balanced Scorecard is a popular approach to performance measurement that integrates financial and non-financial measures tied to the organization's fundamental strategy. It links performance to rewards. It gives explicit recognition to the diversity of organizational goals. And essentially what the Balanced Scorecard does is it, again, determines what are the important, both from a financial and non-financial performance perspective, and it's aimed at helping to recognize the relationship between those and the importance of each of those items, and then how is it and what actions are there that management can do to influence each of those components to its to the organization's benefit. And so key performance indicators, or KPIs, are measures that drive the organization to meet its goals. Key performance goals are grouped into 4 categories with the Balanced Scorecard approach, 1 being financial, 2 being customers, 3 being internal business processes, and 4 being innovation and learning. Some companies use other terminology and include additional categories. The most common additional categories are for employees or other stakeholders. And so the company, given these KPIs, right, whether it's these 4 or some combination of these 4 and others, will then determine what are the important measures or key performance indicators related to each of these key performance goals, and then it will develop performance evaluations for managers and perhaps for the organization at the organization level around each of these key performance indicators. And it's important because in some cases it's these performance evaluations that drive a manager's bonus perhaps, or their aptitude and ability to be promoted. And so this becomes very important, and using this balanced scorecard approach, again, it's it's been around for a while, and a lot of organizations use it, but it does provide a strategy or a model as a way of doing this. And there are several of these types of processes out there, this being the most one of the most widely known. So most service, government, and nonprofit organizations face substantial difficulty implementing management control systems. That's because the main problem is that the outputs of service and nonprofit organizations are difficult to measure. Nonprofit and government organizations have problems designing and implementing an objective that is similar to the financial bottom line that often serves as the unifying goal in private industry. Furthermore, in nonprofit organizations, many people seek primarily non-monetary awards. And so when we think about what the goals of a nonprofit or of the government are, we sometimes think in goals of social improvements or quality of life improvements or environmental improvements. We don't think of these goals generally like we do private organizations in terms of return on investment or profit delivered. And so when we don't have these sort of more tangible, concrete goals for measurement, it becomes a little more difficult then to quantify and sometimes even in non-quantitative measures determine how do we want to assess the performance of the staff, the managers, and the organizational overall as a government or nonprofit organization. Management control systems in nonprofit organizations probably will never be as highly developed as those in profit-seeking firms. That's because organizational goals and objectives are less clear. Moreover, there are often multiple goals and objectives requiring difficult trade-offs. Professions, those like teaching, attorneys, physicians, scientists, and economies tend to dominate nonprofit organizations. Because of their perceived professional status, they are often less receptive to the installation of formal control systems. Measurements are more difficult also because there's no profit measure and there are heavy amounts of discretionary fixed costs which make the relationship of inputs to outputs difficult to specify and measure. There is less competitive pressure from other organizations or owners to improve management control systems. As a result of this, for example, many cities in the United States are privatizing some essential services, such as sanitation, by contracting with private firms. And finally, the role of budgeting, instead of being a rigorous planning process, is often more a matter of playing bargaining games with sources of funding to get the largest possible authorization. Motivations and incentives of employees may differ from those in the not-for-profit organizations, which again makes this a difficult situation with respect to developing a management control system. And so, as organizations mature and as environments change, managers expand and refine their management control tools. The management control techniques that were satisfactory 10 or 20 or even 5 years ago may not be adequate for many organizations today. A changing environment often means that organizations adjust their goals or key success factors. New goals require different benchmarks for evaluating performance. And so this concludes our discussion of Chapter 9. It is important, as I usually say, to go back and read the text. Please don't let this discussion substitute for a good read of the text. And then please move to the learning exercises and to the discussion forums. And thank you.